Are you ready to land your dream role as a Vue JS developer? Most candidates fail not because they can't code, but because they can't explain why Vue works the way it does. In this video, we will cover Vue JS developer interview questions and answers guide. Master your next Vue JS interview with this comprehensive guide. In this video, we dive deep into 30 essential Vue JS interview questions covering the composition API, reactivity, Vuex, Pinia, and performance optimization to ensure you are fully prepared for your technical screening. Before we begin, make sure to hit that subscribe button for more developer career guides. What is the primary difference between vShow and vIf in Vue JS? Option A. vIf is faster for frequent toggling. Option B. vShow conditionally renders the element in the DOM, while vIf only hides it with CSS. Option C. vIf is real, conditional rendering. vShow always renders and only toggles the CSS display property. Option D. vShow supports the less than template greater than element while vIf does not. The correct answer is C. vIf is real, conditional rendering because it ensures that event listeners and child components inside the conditional block are properly destroyed and recreated during toggles. It is also lazy. If the condition is false on initial render, it does nothing. In contrast, vShow is much simpler. The element is always rendered and remains in the DOM. Vue simply toggles the CSS display property. Use vShow if you need to toggle something very often, and vIf if the condition is unlikely to change during runtime. When using ref in Vue 3, how must you access or mutate the value inside a script setup block? Option A. Directly using the variable name. Option B. Using the value property. Option C. Using the data property. Option D. Using the $val helper function. The correct answer is B. In Vue 3's composition API, ref takes an inner value and returns a reactive and mutable ref object. The ref object has a single property, value, that points to the inner value. This is necessary because in JavaScript, primitive types, like strings or booleans, are passed by value, not by reference. By wrapping them in an object, Vue can track access and changes. Note that in the template, Vue automatically unwraps refs, so you don't need value there. Which lifecycle hook is the best place to make an API call to fetch initial data for a component? Option A. Before create. Option B. Created, or on mounted in composition API. Option C. Before update. Option D. Updated. The correct answer is B. In Options API, created is ideal because the reactive data and events are set up, but the DOM has not been mounted yet. In Composition API, on mounted is typically used if you need to ensure the component is in the DOM, or you can simply trigger the fetch in setup, which corresponds to before create, created. Avoid updated for initial data fetching as it triggers every time any data changes, which would cause an infinite loop of fetching and updating. What is the purpose of provide and inject in Vue JS? Option A. To create a global mixin for the entire application. Option B. To pass data from a child component to a parent component. Option C. To pass data down a deep component tree without prop drilling. Option D. To synchronize data between two unrelated sibling components. The correct answer is C. Provide inject is a dependency injection system. A parent component can serve as a dependency provider for all its descendants, regardless of how deep the component hierarchy is. This avoids prop drilling, where you pass a prop through 5 layers of components just to reach a leaf node. However, for complex state shared across different branches of the tree, a state management library like Pinia is usually preferred. Why is it recommended to always use a key attribute with v4? Option A. To uniquely identify elements for the virtual DOM's diffing algorithm. Option B. To automatically sort the list alphabetically. Option C. To enable CSS transitions for the list items. Option D. To bind the index of the array to the element. The correct answer is A. The key special attribute is used as a hint for Vue's virtual DOM algorithm to identify vnodes. When patching the new list of nodes against the old list without keys, Vue uses an algorithm that minimizes element movement and tries to patch, reuse elements of the same type in place. With keys, it can reorder elements based on the movement of keys, which is much more efficient and prevents bugs with stateful child components or temporary DOM state, like input focus. What is the primary advantage of using a computed property instead of a method? Option A. Computed properties can take arguments. Option B. Computed properties are cached based on their reactive dependencies. Option C. Methods are only executed once during the lifecycle. Option D. Computed properties are asynchronous by default. The correct answer is B. Computed properties are cached based on their reactive dependencies. A computed property will only re-evaluate when some of its reactive dependencies have changed. This means as long as the dependency hasn't changed, multiple accesses to the computed property will immediately return the previously computed result, without having to run the function again. Methods, on the other hand, will always run the function whenever a re-render happens. In Pinia, what are the 3 main parts of a store? Option A. State, mutations, actions. Option B. State, getters, mutations. Option C. State, getters, actions. Option D. Props, data, methods. The correct answer is C. Pinia, the modern successor to Vuex, simplifies state management by removing mutations. The 3 core concepts are: 1. State, the data source of truth. 2. Getters, equivalent to computed properties for the store. And 3. Actions, methods that can be asynchronous and modify the state directly. This makes the code cleaner and more TypeScript friendly compared to Vuex's boilerplate. How does Vue 3 reactivity differ from Vue 2 under the hood? Option A. Vue 3 uses object-defined property, while Vue 2 uses proxies. Option B. Vue 3 uses ES6 proxies, while Vue 2 uses object-defined property. Option C. Vue 3 uses a virtual DOM while Vue 2 does not. Option D. There is no difference, only the syntax changed. The correct answer is B. Vue 2 used object-defined property to make properties reactive by converting them into getters, setters. This had limitations, such as the inability to detect new property additions or array index assignments. Vue 3 uses ES6 proxies, which allows Vue to intercept operations on objects directly. This enables better performance, detection of property additions, deletions, and better support for map, set types. Which navigation guard is called before any component is even resolved for a route? Option A, before route enter. Option B, before route update. Option C, before each. Option D, after each. The correct answer is C. Router. Before each is a global navigation guard. It is called in creation order whenever a navigation is triggered. This happens before the route is actually resolved and before any component level guards are called. It is the perfect place for authentication checks or global redirect logic. What is the purpose of v-once directive? Option A, to render an element only once and skip future updates. Option B, to ensure a component is only registered once. Option C, to execute a function only once when a button is clicked. Option D, to limit a v for loop to one iteration. The correct answer is A. V-once is a directive that tells Vue to render the element and its children exactly once and then treat them as static content. On subsequent re-renders, Vue will skip these elements entirely. This is a great optimization for content that never changes once it is loaded, reducing the overhead of the virtual DOM diffing process. What does the torfs function do in Vue 3? Option A, it converts a reactive object into a plain object where each property is a ref. Option B, it converts a ref back into a normal variable. Option C, it creates a reference to a DOM element. Option D, it merges two reactive objects together. The correct answer is A. When you destructure a reactive object created via reactive the resulting variables lose reactivity. To refs solves this by converting the reactive object into a plain object where every property is a ref pointing to the corresponding property in the original object. This allows you to destructure or spread the object without losing the reactive connection to the source. What is emit used for in Vue JS? Option A, to inject a dependency from a parent. Option B, to trigger a custom event from a child component to its parent. Option C, to send a message to a global event bus. Option D, to update a computed property. The correct answer is B. Vue follows a props down, events up architecture. While parents pass data to children via props, children communicate back to parents by emitting events. The parent can then listen for these events using the v on or at directive and execute logic accordingly. What are scope slots in Vue JS? Option A, slots that are only visible to certain components. Option B, slots that allow the child component to pass data back to the slot content in the parent. Option C, slots used for CSS styling only. Option D, slots that are restricted to the local scope of the parent. The correct answer is B. Scope slots are a powerful feature that allows a child component to pass data via attributes on the less than slot greater than element to the parent that is providing the slot content. This is extremely useful for renderless components or UI libraries where the child manages the logic, data, but the parent wants to control the visual layout of each item. Which modifier should be used with vModel to convert user input to a number automatically? Option A, trim. Option B, lazy. Option C, number. Option D, parse. The correct answer is C. By default, the value of an HTML input is always a string. If you want the input to be automatically typecast as a number, you can use the number modifier with vModel . If the value cannot be parsed via parsefloat, the original string is returned. How do you define a dynamic route segment in Vue Router? Option A, using a question mark, e.g., user. Option B, using a colon, e.g., user, id. Option C, using curly braces, e.g., user, id. Option D, using a $sign, e.g., user, $id. The correct answer is B. Dynamic segments are denoted by a colon backquote. For example, a route path like user id will match URLs like user 123 or user abc . The value of the segment is then accessible within the component via route paramsid . What is the teleport component used for in Vue 3? Option A, to move data from one store to another. Option B, to render a component's template at a different location in the DOM tree. Option C, to handle page transitions between routes. Option D, to fetch data from a remote API. The correct answer is B. Teleport is a built-in component that allows us to teleport a part of a component's template into a DOM node that exists outside the component's DOM hierarchy. A common use case is for modals or tooltips, which need to be attached to less than body greater than to avoid CSS z index or overflow. Hidden issues from parent elements. In the composition API, what is the difference between watch and watch effect? Option A, watch effect is asynchronous, while watch is synchronous. Option B, watch track dependencies explicitly, while watch effect tracks them automatically. Option C, watch only works with refs, while watch effect only works with reactive objects. Option D, there is no functional difference. The correct answer is B. Watch is more explicit. You tell it exactly which data source to watch, and it only runs when that source changes. It also provides both the old and new values. Watch effect however, runs the function immediately and automatically tracks every reactive property accessed inside the function as a dependency. If any of those properties change, the effect reruns. What is tree shaking in the context of Vue 3? Option A, a method to organize the file structure. Option B, an optimization process that removes unused code during the build process. Option C, a way to refresh the browser during development. Option D, a debugging tool for the virtual DOM. The correct answer is B. Vue 3 was designed to be modular. Tree shaking is a build step optimization, usually handled by Vite or Webpack, that identifies which parts of the Vue library you are actually using. If you don't use a feature like less than teleport greater than or vmodel that code is not included in your final production bundle, making your app smaller and faster. What is the purpose of the next tick function in Vue? Option A. To delay the execution of a function until the next browser animation frame. Option B. To wait for the next DOM update cycle after data has changed. Option C. To skip a lifecycle hook execution. Option D. To force a component to re-render immediately. The correct answer is B. When you change reactive state in Vue, the DOM is not updated synchronously. Instead, Vue buffers all changes and updates the DOM in a single tick to ensure efficiency. Next tick is a utility that returns a promise or accepts a callback that executes immediately after the DOM has been updated. This is useful if you need to perform actions that depend on the updated DOM state, like measuring an element's height. In Pinia, how do you define a getter that requires an argument? Option A. Getters cannot take arguments. Option B. By returning a function from the getter. Option C. By using the params property in the getter definition. Option D. By calling the getter as a method in the store. The correct answer is B. Getters are essentially computed properties. Since computed properties don't take arguments, you can achieve this in Pinia by having the getter return a function. This function can then take any arguments. Note that when a getter returns a function, it is no longer cached by Pinia Vue, as the result depends on the input arguments. What is the shorthand for the vbind directive? Option A, @ Option B, hash. Option C, Option D, and. The correct answer is C. The shorthand for vbind is a : For example, vbind href equals URL can be written as href equals URL The @ symbol is the shorthand for v on and hash is the shorthand for vslot . Which tool is the official recommendation for unit testing Vue components? Option A, Vue Test Utils. Option B, Jest Core. Option C, Mocha. Option D, Selenium. The correct answer is A. Vue Test Utils is the official low-level library for testing Vue components. It provides methods to mount components and interact with them in an isolated environment. It is typically used alongside a test runner like Vitest or Jest. Which hook in a custom directive is called when the bound element's parent component is mounted? Option A, created. Option B, before mount. Option C, mounted. Option D, inserted. The correct answer is C. In Vue 3, custom directive hooks have been renamed to align with component lifecycle hooks. The mounted hook is called when the element is actually inserted into the DOM and its parent component is mounted. In Vue 2, this hook was known as inserted . How do you implement lazy loading for a route in Vue Router? Option A, using the lazy keyword in the route configuration. Option B, by passing a dynamic import function to the component property. Option C, by using the less than keep alive greater than tag. Option D, It is handled automatically by Vue Router. The correct answer is B. Lazy loading routes helps reduce the initial bundle size. Instead of importing a component at the top of your router file, you use a dynamic import component equals greater than import /views/about.vue . This tells the build tool to split this component into its own chunk, which is only downloaded when the user navigates to that route. What does the is attribute do in dynamic components? Option A. It checks if a component is active. Option B. It specifies which component should be rendered in a less than component greater than placeholder. Option C. It acts as a Boolean flag for conditional rendering. Option D. It identifies the component for debugging. The correct answer is B. The less than component greater than element is a built-in placeholder for rendering dynamic components. The is attribute determines which component is actually rendered. This is useful for tabbed interfaces or dashboards where the content changes based on user selection without changing the route. What is the purpose of shallow ref in Vue 3? Option A. To create a ref that is only reactive for its value property, not its nested properties. Option B. To create a ref that automatically cleans itself up. Option C. To create a ref that cannot be modified. Option D. To improve performance of small strings. The correct answer is A. Shallow ref. Is an optimization. Unlike ref, it does not make the inner value deeply reactive. Only access mutation to the value property itself is tracked. This is useful when storing large objects or third-party class instances that don't need deep reactivity, as it avoids the performance cost of converting everything into proxies. What happens if you try to mutate a const reactive object directly in Vue 3? Option A. It throws a JavaScript error. Option B. The object is mutated, and Vue detects the change if it was created with reactive. Option C. Vue ignores the change and doesn't update the UI. Option D. The const keyword prevents any properties inside the object from being changed. The correct answer is B. The const keyword in JavaScript only prevents the variable itself from being reassigned to a new value reference. It does not make the object immutable. If an object is made reactive via reactive, you can still change its properties, e.g., state, count ++, and Vue's proxy will intercept this and trigger an update. To make an object truly immutable, you would use read-only. Why is Vite faster than Webpack for Vue development? Option A. It uses a faster programming language for the entire build. Option B. It leverages native ES modules in the browser during development. Option C. It doesn't support TypeScript, making it lighter. Option D. It ignores CSS files during the build. The correct answer is B. Vite serves source code over native ESM. This allows the browser to take over part of the job of a bundler. Vite only needs to transform and serve source code on demand, as requested by the browser. Webpack, conversely, has to bundle the entire application before it can be served, which leads to slow startup times as the project grows. What is a composable in Vue 3? Option A. A new type of component. Option B. A function that leverages Vue's composition API to encapsulate and reuse stateful logic. Option C. A plugin for state management. Option D. A replacement for the template section. The correct answer is B. Composables are the Vue 3 way of reusing logic. They are functions, often starting with use, like use mouse or use auth that use refs, computed properties, and lifecycle hooks to manage a specific piece of logic. They are superior to Vue 2 mixins because they make it clear where the logic is coming from and avoid naming collisions. How do you create a read-only version of a reactive object? Option A. By adding the read-only attribute to the HTML. Option B. By using the read-only function from the Vue package. Option C. By freezing the object with object freeze. Option D. By not providing any setters for the object. The correct answer is B. Vue provides a read-only API that takes an object, reactive or plain, and returns a read-only proxy to the original. Any attempt to mutate a property of the read-only proxy will fail and trigger a warning. This is very useful for passing state to child components when you want to ensure the child cannot modify the parent's state directly. That wraps up our 30 essential Vue JS interview questions. Mastering these concepts is the key to demonstrating your expertise and securing that developer position. If you found this helpful, give this video a thumbs up and share it with your fellow devs. Don't forget to check out the full course link in the description for even more mock exams and deep dives. For the full practice exam and certification preparation, check the link in the description below.